As many of you are aware, the federal government announced it will provide $242 million in funding to support school restart plans in our province. And today I'd like to give you more details about what this means for BC's K-12 schools. But before I begin, I want to recognize the incredible work being done throughout our province to ensure kids have a safe, ready, and welcome return to school next week. Schools are going to look different this year. Break and class schedules are going to be different. The layout of classrooms is going to be different. How students enter and exit a building is going to be different. Cleaning services and the emphasis on hand hygiene and personal health will be different. And how we conduct ourselves under the health and safety protocols in a school will be different. All of these adaptations and measures put in place has required a tremendous amount of work behind the scenes. And I want to thank teachers and education assistants who've been in schools getting their classes and lesson plans ready, who've been consulting with their school's health and safety officers so that kids are well supported when they return to school next week. Principals and vice principals and school administration have been exemplary in their communication with families to make sure they know about their schedules, understand learning groups, and what to expect in the classroom when school resumes. Also, a big thank you to school support staff. They're doing everything they need to help reconfigure schools so that they can open and be clean and safe for students and staff. Not to mention school administration staff who've worked tirelessly all summer to develop safe return plans, who've been connecting with parents throughout the province to find out their needs and how best to ensure students get back to learning. All of this work is being done because our province is taking the best science-based public health advice as we plan to welcome students back to school. To support schools during this pandemic, we have provided a one-time provincial investment of $45.6 million in COVID-specific funding to ensure our schools are safe for students and staff. This provincial funding is in addition to the increased levels of funding school districts are already receiving, a $546 million investment of new money in BC's Budget 2020 for K-12 education. The COVID-specific investments have meant that school districts like Nanaimo Ladysmith, District 68, are able to ensure that every classroom has a sink or wall-mounted hand sanitizer station. They've also purchased electrostatic sprayers to frequently clean and sanitize services for every school, and they've increased their school custodial staff by 25%. The School District 68 has also created a distance learning French immersion program with some of the extra funding that has been guaranteed that is COVID-specific for a restart to school. In the Central Okanagan, School District 23, they've also invested in 53 electrostatic sprayers, one for every school. They've purchased 40 handheld units for cleaning buses, and they are supplying hand sanitizer to over 1,000 classrooms throughout their district. They've also purchased 40 hand washing stations for portable classrooms, so every portable in the district has a sink. In Richmond, School District 38, they purchased 1,200 hand sanitizing stations and 55 portable hand washing stations to install in classrooms without sinks using the COVID-specific funding. Richmond is also adding 25 full-time custodians, and more casual custodians are being recruited as we speak. In a district like Surrey, District 36, they've hired 138 additional custodians and 75 additional teachers to support remote learning. This is the kind of incredible work being done to keep schools safe and clean, and I'm only touching on some of the highlights. So once again, I want to thank the school district staff and school leaders for working on these improvements all summer long. To build on this work, we've also been talking with the federal government about the need for more resources for our schools, and we appreciate the federal government's response for British Columbia. Our province's schools will receive up to $242.36 million in one-time COVID-related federal funding for the 2020-21 school year. BC will receive the first half of the payment in September, and funding will be allocated to public school districts based on enrollment. We are initially allocating $101.1 million to public school districts, $7.96 million to independent schools, and reserving $12.1 million for emerging COVID-related issues between September and December 2020. This reserve amount will be allocated for the education sector before the end of December. We will then receive up to an additional $121.18 million in January, which will be allocated at that time. As we all know, BC is a diverse province. There isn't a one-size-fits-all approach to how districts and independent schools will implement their K-12 restart plans. We saw incredible diversity and innovation when they were posted last week. It's going to look different depending on the needs of each community. As we've seen from school districts' restart plans, we know it is local solutions that work best for individual students and families. And with the support of the ministry, many districts have already developed or are developing additional remote options as reported in their K-12 restart plans. For example, school districts like Vernon, School District 22, and Bulkley Valley, School District 54, Caribou-Chilcotin, School District 27, have developed remote learning options for First Nations students. School districts like Sea to Sky, District 48, are expanding their existing distributed learning programs so they can accommodate more students to learn remotely. Coast Mountain, School District 82, Stikine, School District 87, and North Vancouver, School District 44, are offering remote learning options for immunocompromised students. While Surrey, District 36, Burnaby, District 41, and Vancouver, District 39, are creating a blend of both remote and in-class options. This new federal funding will further support school districts to implement these programs, to do things like hire more teachers and support staff to support students, whether they're learning remotely or in the classroom, to purchase things like more software licenses, more electronic course materials or textbooks, to help supply computers or tablets for families who need them, and to create things like additional Wi-Fi hubs in remote and Indigenous communities and provide internet access for families. We've also developed resources for the education sector to use for mental health and wellness to support kids and staff when we return to school, and districts can spend this money on mental health supports for their students and staff going forward. This funding will also allow schools to expand their health and safety measures, things like improving ventilation in buildings, the purchase of more PPE, the installation of additional plexiglass barriers, and to hire even more custodial and support staff. Every dollar of the federal funding announced will benefit students in BC. I can tell you that districts have already reached out to families in their communities to find out if their child will attend school classes starting on September 10th, or if they need an alternative remote learning option. I know that in my own family, where I have 2 school-age kids, we've heard from our school district about the Safe Return to School plan, and we've appreciated the personal outreach done by school staff to go over the Safe Return to plan and to explain what options may be available. We've heard some positive results from these surveys, these emails and phone calls from school staff to parents and families in places like Langley, School District 35, and New Westminster, School District 40, Cowichan Valley, School District 79, and the Southeast Kootenay. They're reporting an almost 85 to 90% return rate for kids who will be returning to the classroom for in-class learning. And we're hearing this echoed from other districts where they're seeing the majority of kids returning to the classroom. A reminder today for any families who haven't heard from their school by now, I would encourage them to reach out to their school to have those conversations about what school will look like, an explanation, an overview of the safe return to class, and also an overview of what options those districts and schools are providing. As the first week of school approaches, we want staff, students, and their families to feel confident knowing that the school system is doing everything possible to ensure schools are as safe as they can possibly be, just as we have from the beginning of this pandemic. And I'm incredibly grateful for the exceptional team of dedicated educational professionals supporting BC students during these challenging times. And once again, I'd like to thank everyone for your continued flexibility and patience as we get ready to safely accommodate most students back into the classroom full time. And I'm happy now to take your questions.